Over the last 20 years, if we're ranking the greatest NBA players, LeBron James sits at number 1. And honestly, once you lay out the RS sum, it stops sounding like a debate and starts sounding like a glitch in the basketball matrix. 4 NBA championships, 4 finals. MVPs on 4 title teams where he was clearly the best player. 13 first-team All-NBA selections, which is the most in league history. 19 All-Star selections. Also an all-time record. 6 first-team All-Defense selections. He won the assist title in 2020. He is the NBA's all-time leading scorer. And yes, that includes the playoffs. In fact, his playoff scoring total is ahead of everyone else by more than 2,000 points. He ranks around 30th on the all-time rebounds list, 4th in playoff rebounds, 4th in all-time assists, and 2nd in playoff assists. He also won 4 regular season MVPs, which puts him 4th all-time in that category. And he won 4 out of 5 times he was seriously in that final MVP zone. That alone is absurd. But the LeBron conversation gets even more interesting when you start talking about MVPs. A lot of people like to say LeBron had a case for MVP basically every year of his prime. I don't fully agree with that. I think there's really only one season where he clearly should have won it and didn't. And that was 2020-20. My view is pretty simple. The East was weaker, which helped Giannis's numbers and team record look even better, while LeBron had the Lakers right behind them, and to me was the better overall basketball player that season. Now, yes, MVP is a regular season award, so playoff performance technically shouldn't matter, but every all-time great has a season like that. Even Michael Jordan. And speaking of Jordan, LeBron's 4 finals. MVPs are second only to MJ. In the entire history of the NBA, the only players with at least 4 finals. MVPs are Michael Jordan and LeBron James. That's it. End of list. But there are 2 major LeBron achievements I really want to highlight. The first is this. LeBron James might be the most successful basketball player ever. And I don't say that lightly. His career is so outrageous that if you split it into 2 separate Hall of Fame careers, both of them still make this list of the top players of the last 20 years. Take everything before the summer of 2014, the first Cavaliers run, and the Miami Heat years, and call that player A. Player A has 4 MVPs, 10 All-Star appearances, 2 championships as the best player on the team, and 2 Finals MVPs. That version of LeBron could comfortably rank around 6th on a list like this. Then, take everything after the summer of 2014, the second Cavaliers stint, and the Lakers years, and call that player B. Player B has 0 MVPs, but still finished 2nd twice and 3rd twice, made 9 All-Star teams, reached 5 finals, won 2 championships as the clear best player, and took home 2 Finals MVPs. That player would still land around 7th without much argument. So even if you split LeBron's career in half, both halves are still all-time great careers. That's how ridiculous the scale of his success really is. That's why I call him the most successful player in NBA history. It's not just longevity, it's not just talent, it's the fact that the man somehow built 2 separate legendary careers inside one body. The second big achievement is this: LeBron might be the most stable playoff performer the game has ever seen. And the reason is not mysterious. It's because LeBron can affect a game in so many different ways. On offense, he never depended entirely on jump shooting to be effective. He's not like a lot of perimeter stars in NBA history where if the jumper is off, the whole engine starts sputtering. Sure, if LeBron's jumper is falling, he becomes even more terrifying. But even when it isn't, he can still dominate with pressure at the rim, playmaking transition, post-ups, physicality, reads, pace control, and sheer force of presence. That makes him incredibly hard to shake out of a game. Let me give you one stat to illustrate that. Over a huge playoff sample, LeBron only had 19 playoff games, shooting below 40% from the field across 168 games. That's roughly a 1 in 10 chance of him having a bad shooting night. Now compare that to Michael Jordan in the 90s playoffs. Jordan had 23 games below 40% in 142 playoff games. That's over 16%. Now, let me be clear, I still think Jordan's the greatest player ever. But what that comparison shows is that LeBron's game had less volatility. Jordan leaned more heavily on shot making because that was his main tool of destruction. LeBron, especially in his prime, had more ways to stay effective even when one part of his game wasn't perfect. That's why I think no player in NBA history has been less affected by off nights. At his peak, he may have been the most reliable playoff player the sport has ever seen. Now, I want to go deeper into 3 major moments that define LeBron's career, because these are the moments that really explain why his legacy is so unique. And the first one, without question, is the 2011 finals. For LeBron, that series is the giant stain on the sum. It's the one critics always circle in red ink. And honestly, I get it, but I also think that 2011 was one of the most important moments of his entire career. By that point, LeBron was already an incredible basketball player. He was already one of the hardest working stars in the league. But if he truly wanted to reach that final level, if he wanted to enter the conversation for the greatest basketball player ever, then he needed something brutal. He needed a wake-up call. He needed a wake-up call. He needed failure. And Dallas gave him exactly that over the final 4 games of that series against the Mavericks. LeBron averaged only about 16 points per game, shot around 44% from the field, and around 19% from 3. The series exposed several glaring weaknesses in his game. First, he did not truly trust his jump shot, especially under pressure. Second, he didn't have a reliable post-game facing the basket, or with his back to the rim. For power-based attackers, that matters a lot in deep playoff basketball. Once defenses reach a certain level, they load up the paint. They crowd your driving lanes. You can't just lower your shoulder and storm to the rim every single time. That's why being able to post up, catch closer to the basket, score efficiently, reduce turnovers, and still read the floor for passing opportunities becomes such a critical skill. If you look at Jordan and Kobe later in their careers, especially in the playoffs, they used post play constantly to control possession. It let them stay dangerous as scorers while also seeing the whole floor and creating for teammates. That was not really LeBron yet in 2011. And the fact that the Mavericks could throw guys like JJ Barea, Jason Kidd, and Sean Marion at him tells you something important. The reason they were comfortable doing that was because LeBron's back to the basket game simply wasn't strong enough at the time. The third big issue was mental. When the game turned ugly, when things got uncomfortable, LeBron had a tendency then to become passive. That passivity was one of the root causes of his collapse in those last few finals games. But here's the thing, that painful loss was exactly the punch in the mouth he needed. It revealed every crack in the armor. It showed him that he still had so many places where he was not powerful enough, not polished enough, not complete enough, and if he wanted to become a true all-time force, he had to keep sculpting his game. So that summer, LeBron got back in the gym and went to work. He attacked his jumper, and everybody knows this is not something that improves overnight. Shooting is a slow burn skill. You have to invest thousands and thousands of reps to make even a small improvement. It doesn't magically appear. Giannis is actually a pretty good example of how hard that process can be. But with LeBron, you could visibly see the growth happen fast across the next stage of his prime. For example, in the 2012 playoffs, his effective field goal percentage on jump shots was only about 37%. By 2013, that jumped to around 47%. By 2014, it reached roughly 52%. He became the kind of player who could beat elite defenses with jumpers in high-pressure games. Now, 2015 was a weird low point for his jumper. He was dealing with a back injury, opponents packed the paint, and his shot just looked strange that year. I've mentioned before that 2015 felt like one of those bizarre seasons where LeBron temporarily lost the feel for his jump shot. And the back issue was a big part of that. But if you zoom out, the larger story is still clear through relentless work. He took what had once been a major weakness and turned it into a real weapon. Or, at the very least, something defenses could no longer comfortably ignore. If you dared LeBron to shoot, eventually he was going to make you pay. More importantly, it wasn't just about the mechanics getting better. It was the confidence. The jumper became something he trusted, something he could go to in a big moment. Think about Game 7 of the 2013 Finals, when he basically put the game away against San Antonio with that mid-range dagger. Or think ahead to Game 7 of the 2016 Finals against Golden State, when he knocked down a huge 3 in the fourth quarter. We'll get back to that later. Point is, this was no longer the hesitant shooter we saw in 2011. He had become a player who could rise up and fire without flinching. And then there was the postgame. In the 2011 playoffs, LeBron made only 19 shots from post-up situations. In 2012, you immediately saw the change. He made 35 post-up field goals in the playoffs, nearly doubling the previous year. Through constant work on footwork and finishing, he kept evolving. By 2014, LeBron had become one of the best post scorers in the entire NBA among 31 players. With at least 300 post-up possessions, he ranked first at around 1.12 points per possession. In 2016, he finished the season second in total post-up production. In 2017, he ranked fourth. In 2018, he again became one of the very best post-up players in the league. So think about the transformation. He went from a guy who didn't really want to live in the post to a guy who became one of the best in the business at punishing mismatches there. That is what I mean when I say LeBron pushed himself to a level he may not even have fully understood before he failed. He needed to fall flat on his face. He needed to feel that failure all the way through. That was the price of entering the Jordan level conversation. And to his credit, he paid it. He rebuilt the jumper, added footwork, sharpened the post game, and kept carving at his weaknesses with a stubborn, relentless professionalism until he became a truly elite scorer in every sense. And if you watch LeBron from around 2017 through 2020, you can really see the full result of that process. The off-the-dribble scoring, the impossible finishes through heavy contact, the weird, almost unfair combinations of handle, footwork, balance, and touch. Those are the tools you need when you're creating tough shots against set defenses. That part of his game did not appear by accident. It was built. Now remember remember the third flaw we talked about from 2011? When things went badly, LeBron used to get passive. Well, in 2012, we saw the first great proof that he had changed. That season started brilliantly in his first 9 games of the regular season. LeBron was averaging something like 38 points, 8 rebounds, and shooting around 60%, while Miami went 8-1. By the end of the year, he gave the Heat about 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists per GME on around 61% true shooting. He made first team All-NBA, first team All-Defense, and won regular season MVP. But once the playoffs started, things got complicated fast. Chris Bosh injured his abdominal muscle, and suddenly the Heat's margin for error got a whole lot thinner. Against Indiana, Miami lost games 2 and 3 and fell behind 1-2 on the road. In Game 4, LeBron responded with 40 points, 18 rebounds, and 9 assists to tie the series. Miami regained control from there and advanced, but Bosh didn't really return in a meaningful way until Game 5 against Boston, and even then, he came off the bench and wasn't much of a factor. So against the Celtics, Miami again found itself in serious trouble, trailing the series 2 games to 3 on the road. And that is when LeBron delivered one of the greatest games of his life, Game 6 in Boston. He went 19 for 26 from the field, posted over 75% true shooting, and dropped 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. He absolutely crushed the Celtics, and what makes that performance even more impressive is the context. Dwayne Wade, the best teammate LeBron had that night, shot only 6 for 17 and scored just 17 points. Bosh was still trying to find rhythm and went 3 for 8 off the bench. This was a brutal defense first game, and you can see that in the numbers everywhere. Even Kevin Garnett only shot 6 for 14. By the end of the night, Boston had managed only 79 points as a team. Sometimes I think about Steph Curry's Game 4 in the 2022 Finals against Boston, and it makes me realize Celtics fans have really been through some heartbreak. They've had some great teams, but they've also watched a few all-time superstars rip their hearts out in memorable ways. Kobe in 2010, LeBron in 2012, Curry in 2022. Back to that 2012 run though. If you remember that version of LeBron, that was almost the birth of what I'd call transitional. LeBron at full power, catching the ball, taking off from just past half court, building momentum like a freight train, and turning someone like Paul Pierce into a traffic cone on the way to the rim. It was violence with control. Then came the finals against Oklahoma City, which felt like a passing of the torch showdown between LeBron and Kevin Durant. In the biggest moments of that series, LeBron took the game away. During clutch time across the series, LeBron scored 14 points and made 7 field goals, while Durant had 7 points and only 2 made shots. That's basically the heart of why Miami won. The first 4 games were all pretty competitive. OKC took Game 1, but in Game 2, every late game bucket or assist for Miami basically ran through LeBron. In Game 3, with about 7 minutes left, LeBron took over a 13-8 stretch. Outside of one Wade layup and one Wade mid-range jumper, everything important was created by LeBron. That pushed Miami ahead by 4 with about 16 seconds left. And suddenly the Heat were up 2-1. Then there was Game 4, the one everybody remembers for the cramps. Even in that game, with the score tied late at 94, LeBron buried one of the most important threes of the series. Then Miami won big in Game 5 and closed out the championship. Durant got the first win, but in Games 2, 3, and 4, LeBron was the better closer, the better late game force, and ultimately the reason Miami walked away with the title. And this is why the 2011 collapse matters so much, because what came after it is one of the greatest redemption stories in NBA history. LeBron came back from that humiliation and immediately corrected the exact things that failed him. He saved Miami from the embarrassment of being bounced by Indiana. He saved them again when Boston had them on the brink. And when the finals tightened up against OKC, he was the one who kept taking control in the moments that mattered most. So when you step back and look at the full picture, this is what the story really says. LeBron James started as a player with a shaky jumper, limited confidence in that jumper, a weak post-game relative to his talent, and a tendency to get passive when things went sideways. Then he got punched in the face by the 2011 finals. And instead of hiding from it, he fixed everything. He learned to trust the jumper enough to hit season-defining shots in the finals. He turned himself into one of the league's most effective post players. And when his teams found themselves in ugly playoff situations, he became the guy who could personally drag them back to safety. That is why the 2011 loss matters so much in the LeBron story. It didn't end his journey. It transformed it. And that's where we're gonna pause for today, because this video got way too loaded, way too detailed, and way too fun to cram into one episode. So I'm splitting it into 2 parts. That's part 1. If you made it this far, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what was the real turning point of LeBron's career in your eyes. Was it the 2011 collapse, the Boston Game 6 masterpiece, the 2016 comeback, or something else entirely? I'll see you in the next video for part 2.